Hey folks, hope you're doing great. This is Mike for Riverwoods Durham Fitness, and today we're going to piggyback. This is going to be our second video in our squat series. So we're going to piggyback on last week's video where we introduced the bodyweight squat, and we talked a little bit about one of the primary mistakes that we often see with the squat. And just to give a little review on what that is, so one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing in your squat, I'm going to give a side view, is to stay loaded on your heels at all times. One of the mistakes that we see is weight shifting forward and lifting the heels up during the squat. A good way to get out of that mistake is when you're starting nice and tall, bend your knees as far as you can while maintaining heel contact. And then from there, you only have one option, and that is to sink right down into the squat. So that's a really good way to get out of that mistake. The second big mistake that we see, and there's really two big mistakes that we see, and that is what's called going into valgus collapse. And so all that means is, I'm going to give a front view here, is when your knees come toward each other during the squat. Ultimately, we want the knees to track really over the middle toe of each foot during the squat. And so we want to do a couple things, one of two things, to help improve that. And oftentimes, the reason that people go into this collapse is really because of a motor control issue. So what I mean by motor control is when we do any movement, our muscles need to fire in a very specific sequence in order to produce that movement. And so, as a result of that, it's not as simple as just cueing, pushing knees apart. We need some kind of external stimulus in order to make sure that the muscles are firing in the proper sequence. One cue is to spread the floor with your toes. So this is a little bit hard to demo because you're not going to see any movement with my toes, but that's the point. So I'm going to set up my feet, and then I'm going to try to spread the floor, so basically rotating my foot to spread the floor during the squat. So I am actively pushing my toes out. Like I said, you notice that my feet aren't moving, but I'm actively trying to spread the floor with my toes, pushing the toes out as I go into the squat. So that's one thing to try, right? And that's spread the floor. So spread the floor with the balls of your feet and go into your squat. If you find that that doesn't work, or that's kind of hard to conceptualize, you can absolutely use a tool, and a mini band is a perfect tool for this. You'll notice that we have two different lengths of bands. So we have green and yellow bands, longer bands. We have green and yellow, shorter bands. The yellow band has a little bit less tension. The green band has a little bit more tension. If you struggle to get the bands on because they're just too small, the smaller ones, that's why we have the little bit of a larger one. I'm going to use this one here. I'm going to put the band around each leg, and we're going to put it right above the knees. So like I said, you might find the longer band easier to get on. That's perfectly fine. And now I have an external tool that I'm going to push into. So I'm going to keep tension on the band the whole time as I squat down. That tension that you're going to supply with your legs is going to create the proper motor control that we're looking for, that proper sequencing of the muscles. And so you're going to push the band out with your legs as you're squatting down. So that's a really good tool to use, a really good way to get out of that mistake. So that's a couple ways of improving the squat pattern, and give them a shot. If you have any questions about those, definitely let any member of the fitness team know, and thanks for watching.